Now it is time for the Sponsor Perspective portion of our program, and for that I'd like to introduce ABB's Chief Digital Officer, Guido Jouret.
Good morning. Thank you very much. And I'd also like to thank the Senator and Congresswoman for a very interesting and enlightening presentation. So in case you're wondering, ABB, we're not Airbnb, we're the engineering company. I get that a lot. We're 126 years old. We're a company that's involved in infrastructure and automation. So a lot of what the Congresswoman just spoke about, microgrids, energy management, automation, factories, that's the heart and soul of what we do as a company. We have 20,000 employees here in the United States. The US is our biggest market. I want to now tee up the topic that we want to get into in our panel, which is all about the importance of digital infrastructure. And in some sense, we've seen a first wave of digitization, which happened in the 90s. And the main industries affected would be telecom, computer industry, and financial services, right? And if we look at what happened, telecom, voice is essentially free. You can now buy a computer, Raspberry Pi, for the price of a cup of coffee. And in terms of financial services, you can fire your broker because the computer software will now manage your investment portfolio for you. Well, we're about to witness a second digital revolution. And this is being driven primarily by consumer technologies. There's three that are vital to this: artificial intelligence, virtual reality, augmented reality, and blockchain. And these consumer-led technologies are now starting to sweep across all the other industries that were not already transformed by the first wave of digitization. And the main impact is in terms of areas like the energy markets, factory automation, and transportation and infrastructure in general. And if we look at the two main areas that we're going to, I think, spend a bit of time on the panel today, the energy infrastructure. So we just heard from the Congresswoman about the importance of a more resilient grid based on microgrids, small self-contained grids that can either strengthen the grid or supply a grid where there's none. But at the same time, we're seeing the advent of renewable energies coming onto the grid. So the way that our electricity infrastructure is going to look like in the future is far less big centralized power generation and transmission, and it's going to look a lot more like the internet. Small coordination between various actors, distributed, resilient, and all of this is going to require digital technologies to deliver reliable power. However, that comes with a bit of an issue, which is that if we look at our energy infrastructure, it's aging. And we'll hear that, I think, in particular from one of our panelists who represents the American Society of Civil Engineers. But just a couple of factoids. The average age of a transformer in the US grid is 40+ years old, and that's exactly its normal lifetime. So most of these transformers are past due. We also see that the electricity infrastructure is one of the favorite targets of cybercrime. It's the second most targeted industry after financial services. And nation states are specifically acting to try and attack and probe the electricity grid infrastructure. If we look now to the industrial revolution, we have the advent of what's called the fourth industrial revolution, which is the next wave driven by things like 3D printing, computer-controlled machines for milling, and also robotics. And clearly, with the advent of robotics, it raises concerns about job losses, the impact of automation. However, we also see that 3 of the countries with the highest penetration of robots also have among the world's lowest unemployment rates. This is Japan, Germany, and South Korea. And in Silicon Valley, where I sit, we have a crying need for more engineers, more talent needed. We have hundreds of thousands of vacancies for cybersecurity experts, people who can program automation, who can help to make these robots and other intelligent machines productive. And I think, therefore, in closing, one of the topics that I think we should also discuss is how do we attract more people, not only the investment, but also attract people to invest in the STEM field, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And as the father of 2 daughters who are going into STEM, my oldest is going into mechanical engineering, where even in her initial freshman class, only 7% of that class was female. So we have a long way to go. And these are jobs that are great paying jobs, offer fantastic potential to create additional jobs. So in California, where I sit, it's estimated that every engineer creates another 5 jobs in the state. So while we talk about certain industries and parts of the country impacted by the negative sides of automation, I think we also have to consider that if we're to renew our infrastructure and create the intelligent infrastructure on which our economy depends, we need to make sure that we have the people, and the people that can now help us deliver that. And one of the plugs I will make is that it'd be great to see some more positive images of engineers and scientists in public discourse and also in the media. I think the last time I saw a good movie where the computer scientists or the engineers weren't portrayed as antisocial geeks was probably The Right Stuff, and that was from 1983. So I think we have an opportunity. And it's certainly, I think, an interesting opportunity as well as a challenge. And this is not a challenge that the US faces alone. We see active engagement with governments in Germany, in China, around the world actually, looking for this technology infrastructure as a great opportunity, an opportunity to renew existing infrastructure and create new capabilities. So as we just heard previously from the Congresswoman about finding ways to pay for infrastructure, one of the key innovations that digital technologies can also bring is innovative funding models. For example, Wonder Capital has allowed community funding for renewable energy projects, for example, where citizens can invest directly to help drive community-level solar and wind projects, for example. So I think the interesting part of raising the discourse on digitalization with infrastructure is that we need to renew this nation's infrastructure. It's an opportunity for economic wealth creation, opportunity creation, whether it's creating more jobs in West Virginia or helping the economy of the British Virgin Islands or other parts of the United States. I think the combination of infrastructure and digital technologies can give rise to a wealth of new opportunities. So with that, thank you very much for attending, and I'd like to turn it over to our panel.